This is a customer announcement. Can the owner of the supermassive black hole please remove it from the UK Top 40 as it is sucking in all matter and gravity? Thank you, and welcome to another edition of the 2000s Chart Show.
The 2000s Chart Show. The 2000s Chart Show.
That's right, we are the 2000s Chart Show, the 2000s Chart Show no less. No other imitators around. Every week we are reliving the 40 biggest selling songs from this week, 20 years ago, and telling the story of all the new entries. Yes, I am Samuel Spencer, and this week our body's been a mess, and I miss your ginger hair and the way you like to dress. Won't you come on over? Stop making a fool out of me. That, of course, lyrics from Valerie by the Zutons. This time, Amy Winehouse's version, still a few years away, but the Zutons, one of the 10 new entries we're going to be talking about this week. Valerie. Alongside them, the Pussycat Dolls are telling us to loosen up their buttons. Muse want us to see their supermassive black hole. Careful, Matt. And the Kooks want us to know that she moves in her own way. She's got a limp, has she? They are just some of the new entries trying to knock off the top spot after 2 weeks. Also, still very much in the running for number one is one of the biggest selling songs of the year. Shakira's entered the chart last week at number 3. But who knows with this modern chart, things are up and down and all over the place, making it very fun for us. So I can't wait to talk about the top 40. Let's do it.
The top 40.
The 40 biggest selling singles in the United Kingdom between the 25th of June and the 1st of July 2006. Kicking off with
40.
A song in its 7th week, Bright Idea by Orson. Shout out to my teenage friend Beth, who was obsessed with the band Orson and tried so desperately for anyone else to get into them, to absolutely no avail. Bright Idea. Ahead of them is a band I feel just keep releasing the same singles again and again and just hoping they're going to get better results. I swear this has been in the chart before. Indeed, this song actually made it all the way to number 18 back in July 2005. They're re-releasing it, trying to get a better result and ending up 21 places lower. That's a pretty humiliating end of the album campaign. 4 at 39, The Editors with Blood.
39.
Here's what we said about it when it was first released back in July 2005.
The 2000s Chart Show.
Editors getting their first top 20 hit, an improvement from their last single, Munich, which went to number 22. Drowned in Sound said of this, as if they never went away, Birmingham's Editors return in double quick time to remind us just why they are the singles band of 2005. Regardless of any reference points from bygone days, the Editors' sound is distinctive and utterly recognisable. Surely if that isn't the sign of a potentially great artist, then what is? Though on the single for Blood by Editors, it's not this song that is the most worth your attention. I would urge you to listen to the B-side, which is their very atmospheric cover of the R.E.M. song Orange Crush. The doomy piano chords at the beginning of that song alone are, for me, a high point of this era of British indie. And very appropriate that they're putting that out this week. They are really showing that they can do R.E.M. better than actual R.E.M. But unlike R.E.M., they're actually going for clarity this time. This is the first of their singles where the name of the song actually features in the lyrics. Comes from the chorus, "Blood runs through your veins, that's where our similarity ends." A pretty nasty kiss-off to a presumably ex-lover. And so it's ironic that as they are touring this song, this very bitter breakup song, Tom Smith, the lead singer of Editors, starts dating no one other than Radio 1 DJ and star of my beloved Celebrity Fame Academy, Edith Bowman. They had been set up by a mutual friend earlier in the year. They first met locking eyes over a picnic bench, which is not a euphemism, as far as I know. To this day, they are married and have 2 kids, and they seem to live in somewhat wedded bliss. Asked what the most embarrassing thing that either of them does in an Ideal Home interview in 2022, Edith says that she always takes a drink of water to bed and often forgets to drink it, meaning that her bed ends up surrounded by glasses of water. She said, "My husband always jokes about it when we go to bed. He says, 'Do you want a water?' but then points out that I've already got 3 glasses by the bed already." Not the rock and roll lifestyle that you may have hoped that a hot rock band in the 2000s was living, but I find it quite sweet. And later in the year, with Edith Bowman's support in tow, they will try and re-release their original single, Bullets. The first time they released it, back in February, it only went to number 54. We'll see whether it can do better the second time round. I'm not holding my breath because we've had so many cases recently of people who re-release a song and then it does worse than it did in the first place. So we hope for the best for Editors, but expect the worst in October.
The 2000s Chart Show.
And so that's it for the Editors album, The Back Room. The album got all the way to number 2 back in January 2006, only being kept off the top spot by Hard-Fi's Stars of CCTV. But unlike Hard-Fi, Editors still have a top 10 ahead of them. Their first single from their second album, Smokers Outside the Hospital Doors, due to make the top 10 in June 2007, where we will talk about them again. But for now, we're going to keep moving up the 2006 chart. By the way, this is the bargain bin. Songs that have flopped and songs that are on their way to the top. The songs between 30 and 40 in this week's chart. 20 years ago.
Bargain bin 38.
We have another of 2000's many varied mid-tier indie bands, never quite able to match the success of a band like the Editors, despite beating them here. There's 2 ways I like my knives, okay? I like them sharp, and I like them young. And so thank God, at 38, this is the Young Knives with She's Attracted To. I wanted them to like me, yeah! This, their follow-up to the number 36 hit, Here Comes the Rumour Mill, from March. This from Henry and Thomas Dartnell and Oliver Askew, who are Young Knives. My favourite band that all look like young, enthusiastic history teachers, although Drowned in Sound put that very differently. Often derided, fairly some might argue, for looking like tweed-clad kiddie fiddlers, the Young Knives have had the last laugh here and finally deliver on all their kooky promise with a single that takes a quite ridiculous premise and turns it into alt-pop gold. Sonically, it's Gang of Four covering Park Life, but the story is pure Jerry Springer. So your girlfriend's parents don't approve of you. What do? Sulk for a while before insisting you don't visit her at home? Try extra hard to impress them, or give her old man a damn good pasting. Of course, most sane people would opt for A or B, but it would not make for good pop. Thankfully, our favourite kitchen utensils pick C, and She's Attracted To is an absolute gem, the kind of song that doesn't come along very often. You were screaming at your mum and I was punching your dad, hollers Henry Dartnell. Me, I was just punching the air in delight. That a 9 out of 10 review for a band from the best named place in the UK, Ashby Dilla Zouch. This the second of their 3 top 40 singles from their Mercury-nominated debut album, Voices of Animals and Men. No coincidence they sound like Gang of Four, seeing as the album produced by that band's leader, Andy Gill. The Dartnells found a taste for fame as children, where they were both in a local Amdram society. Henry, it seems, a star of that scene, starring as Hansel in Hansel and Gretel and Dracula in Dracula, whilst his brother, known in the band as House of Lords, had to play a tree. Henry and Oliver had met in an electronics class at school. They sat at a table with only 2 girls and bonded over flirting with them. They say on their website, our main interests were trying cigarettes, charity shop clothes from the 70s, and cool Midlands bands like Ned's Atomic Dustbin, Senseless Things, and Pop Will Eat Itself. And girls. Ollie lived in a nice big house with a drum kit in the attic room and some guitars and stuff, so I liked him even more. I live in a small village nearby and started biking over to Ollie's at the weekend to have sleepovers, watch movies, smoke, play pool, and eventually we had a go at making music. First known as Simple Pastoral Experience, their original singer joined the Navy, leading Henry to take over on vocals and bring his brother into the band, which became known as Pony Club, and then after they moved to Oxford, the Young Knives. They told Clash, if you live in London, you see people who are in bands and think it's feasible. But if you live in the Midlands, you see people in the pub who sell drugs, beat people up and work in factories. There aren't many pop stars around here. The name Young Knives coming from them misreading the phrase young knaves in a Scottish history book. Their mainstream success happening after they appeared on a Channel 4 programme that saw bands competing for a place at V Festival. They have claimed that the production was somewhat rigged towards them as the producers liked them, and this led to them winning it, and, as they put it, things just seemed to snowball. And the snowballing will continue into their next single, August's Weekend and Bleak Days brackets Hot Summer, if it's not too much of a mixed metaphor for me to talk about snowballing and hot summers. So they'll be back in the summer, as hopefully Stan Boardman will not. As I said last week, you can tell England not doing well in the football due to the way Their songs are dropping like a stone from the chart. Stan Boardman taking a 20-place drop in his month in the chart.
37.
Having a much more consistent chart run is the Red Hot Chili Peppers with Danny California.
36. 35.
Primal Scream with Country Girl.
34.
Another football song taking a huge drop off the chart, 19 places down the chart in its month. Crazy Frog with We Are the Champions, Ding-a-Dang-Dong. The Crazy Frog, of course, often has a trouble controlling himself, and so it's nice to see him just below Control Myself by LL Cool J and Jennifer Lopez.
33.
Turned around and giggled. She said
32.
Some huge drops on this chart this week. This one, they can't even blame football. 27 place drop for Bon Jovi with Who Says You Can't Go Home in their second week on the chart.
too much time on the telephone.
31.
Hurry Up England drops 21 places.
Come on! Come on!
And we leave the bargain bin with Busta Rhymes' Touch It.
30.
And we, of course, are within touching distance of the top 30, with songs still to come from All American Rejects, the Kooks, Lupe Fiasco, Michael Jackson, Muse, Ne-Yo, Pussycat Dolls, and the Zutons. Lots of great 2006 era music still to come. First, though, two songs that have now spent 3 weeks on the chart. T.I.'s Why You Wanna at
29.
Say the word, we could lead a day.
and Solu Music and Kimblay's Fade at
28.
ahead of them. Our third new entry this week, a rapper making his debut on the chart. As a solo artist, that is. He's actually already been in the top 10 as a featured artist, appearing on Kanye West's Touch the Sky. His name is Lupe Fiasco, and this is Kick Push.
27.
His neighbors couldn't stand his soul.
Lupe Fiasco, the rap name of Wasalu Mohammed Jacko from Chicago, who will get 4 top 40 hits, his peak being when his track Superstar gets to number 4 in 2008. And by the way, if you want to hear this podcast with clips of all the songs we talk about, including that one, that's available over at our Patreon. Fiasco, one of 9 children, whose father was a busy guy, member of the Black Panther Party, prolific African drummer, karate teacher, operating plant engineer, and owner of karate schools and army surplus stores. The Lupe Fiasco said about his childhood: I grew up in the hood around prostitutes, drug dealers, killers and gangbangers, but I also grew up juxtaposed. On the doorknob outside of our apartment there was blood from some guy who'd got shot, but inside there was National Geographic magazines and encyclopedias and a little library bookshelf situation. And we didn't have cable, so we didn't have the luxury of having our brains washed by MTV. We watched public television, cooking shows and stuff like that. In 6th grade, after his parents divorced, he went to live with his father, who lived next door to a crack house and taught Fiasco to use guns to defend himself from drug dealers. He initially actually didn't like hip-hop, preferred jazz, but his struggle to play as well as any of his jazz heroes led him to move into poetry, and after hearing Nas's work, he began to pursue hip-hop. His rap name came from his nickname Lou, which is what his mother called him, which he extended to Lupe, which was a name of a friend of his from high school. Fiasco comes from a Nas song called Firm Fiasco. He had a solo deal with Arista Records a few years prior, but was dropped without releasing anything after the president of that record label was fired. But during his time there, he happened to meet Jay-Z, who liked his stuff so much that he asked him to join his Def Jam record. He helped him get a record deal at Atlantic. He has built up his audience through releasing online mixtapes and by having this album, Lupe Fiasco's Food and Liquor, leaked online 6 months early. We've talked about him briefly before on this podcast. I think he was the one who did the remix of Kanye's Diamonds from Sierra Leone, the Conflict Diamonds remix. He liked this so much that he asked Lupe to appear on his song Touch the Sky, and the success of that led to this track being released. It's a love story about 2 skateboarders. He said, I'm not the greatest skateboarder, but I'm a damn good rapper, so I made a damn good skateboarding song. Not that this pleased the skateboarding community. He ended up in a feud with the skateboarder Terry Kennedy, who released a diss track called Kick Push Pass. Terry saying in interviews, I don't rap, but if you're going to try and eat off my plate, I'm going to eat off your plate. The skateboarder saw him as sort of using the image of skateboarding for kudos, basically, or for clout, as the kids say. All those kids listening to this 2000s Nostalgia podcast, hello. As many as 100,000 people illegally downloaded his album after it leaked, leading to it being delayed, although eventually released in September 2006. He says that the name Food and Liquor is named after a series of basically off-licenses that there were in Chicago. He was a practicing Muslim, so didn't drink. Says food for him represented the good in everyone and liquor the bad. He's certainly getting to work with all the good producers, however. This album featuring production from Kanye West, Jay-Z, the Neptunes, and Mike Shinoda from Linkin Park. All of which leads to Lupe Fiasco ending the year with GQ magazine naming him the Breakout Man of the Year. And we'll see if he can continue his breakout when his next single, a duet with Jill Scott, comes out in November. For now, though, at number 27, ahead of him, the Kooks with Naive, which means that they are the latest band we've talked about to have two UK top 40s at the same time. We'll be talking about their track, She Moves in Her Own Way, later on in the show.
26.
Something so beautiful.
Naive, though, been in the chart for 14 weeks, peaked at number 5. Back, 14 weeks ago. Henrietta by the Fratellis. I mean, is there any more landfill indie double bill than that? Dropping 6 places in its third week on the top 75.
25.
Tony Christie's Is This the Way to the World Cup? Doing better than other footballing songs there, only dropping a mere 13 places in its month on the chart.
24. 23.
Something remarkable has happened. Basically, every single week that there's been a Michael Jackson re-release, songs sampling Michael Jackson have been doing better. And this is the first week where that's not the case, because Beatfreakz are here with their Michael Jackson sampling Somebody's Watching Me. The penultimate, thank God, re-release in the Michael Jackson series is Stranger in Moscow.
22.
Stranger in Moscow was written when I was in Moscow on the Dangerous Tour. And it was just a strange, eerie, lonely time for me. Outside my hotel was just a sea of faces of fans chanting and screaming. But I was inside my room and I felt so all alone.
The fact that this is doing much better than recent Michael Jackson re-releases, probably more due to a slow sales week rather than particular enthusiasm for the track, which was a number 4 hit in 1996, but a huge disappointment on the Billboard charts, where it only made it to number 91, becoming Michael Jackson's lowest peaking song on the chart, and really bringing to an end his place as a regular chart presence in the US. He would only have one more top 10 there in his lifetime with You Rock My World, even if in the UK he still has one number 1 single left to go. As Michael Jackson said in that interview clip at the beginning of this section, recorded in Moscow in September 93, according to his tour keyboardist Brad Buxer, Michael Jackson came into his hotel room to play a number of the songs he was working on for the soundtrack to Sonic the Hedgehog 3, which was a real thing that nearly happened, or did happen. It's actually people find it very unclear how much Michael Jackson music is in Sonic 3, but certainly people have seen a similarity between the last music cue in Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Stranger in Moscow, which many people have read as the response to the recent events in his personal life following the accusations of child sexual abuse against him made in 1993, damaging his health so much that he cancelled his Dangerous World tour and went to rehab. Whoever wrote the Stranger in Moscow Wikipedia is very angry about this. Though not charged with a crime, Jackson was intensely scrutinised by the media during the criminal investigation. Complaints about the coverage of media included using sensational headlines that imply guilt, accepting stories of Jackson's alleged criminal activity and leaked police material in exchange for money, deliberately using unflattering pictures of Jackson, and a lack of objectivity. I would say it's not really the press's fault if his face was basically falling apart. Even pictures he released of himself at this point on single covers are pretty unflattering, so I can't think the press is to be blamed there. This piece also says, these tabloids also falsely allege that Jackson had travelled to Europe to have cosmetic surgery that would make him unrecognisable upon return, which is not true, is it? Come on. His biographer says that it's also based around a real thing he used to do, which was walk around alone at night, looking for someone to talk to. Apparently he would even do this during the peak of his popularity. As a teenager, he had once said in an interview, even at home I'm lonely. I sit in my room sometimes and cry. It's so hard to make friends. I sometimes walk around the neighbourhood at night just hoping to find someone to talk to, but I just end up coming home. And we can nearly come home to a world where there are no more Michael Jackson re-releases on this chart, of course, until he dies in 2009. Of this re-release series, the last of them, Blood on the Dance Floor, is next week, and then we can finally breathe a sigh of relief and actually talk about songs that came out in 2006, which wouldn't that be nice on this show about the year 2006.
21.
We are nearly at the top 20. First, we have one more new entry. His last single went to number 1. That was So Sick. This song coming into the chart on downloads alone at 21, meaning likely to be jumping into the top 10 next week. This is Ne-Yo, and this is Sexy Love. And I'm sorry, Ne-Yo, this is my stinker of the week.
Stinker of the week.
It's proof that it's not only ChatGPT that could produce the most generic-ass content you've ever heard. I'm just saying, for a man whose first single is about how he's so sick of love songs, he seems pretty happy putting this love slop out. Not that stops him, of course, having 4 more number 1 hits in the US. This, though, his second collaboration in a row with the Norwegian producers Stargate, Tor Hermansen and Mikkel Eriksson. Both grew up loving American rap and R&B and getting better and better at replicating it. They've really had the ultimate glow-up in pop music terms if you look at the difference between their first UK number 1 and their second. You know, they go from writing Hearsay's follow-up to Pure and Simple to So Sick by Ne-Yo, and then going on to being basically the main sound of mainstream R&B for half a decade, thanks to the 2006 1-2 punch of Irreplaceable by Beyoncé and Unfaithful by Rihanna, which were both also written by Ne-Yo. They had gone to New York feeling that their UK success was about to run dry. This came after they had been allowed to remix a number of US artists for the European market, but had never been able to produce like a main single for an artist, except for former child star Mikalia, for who they wrote So In Love With 2, peaked at number 25 in 2001 in the US. They actually bumped into Ne-Yo through sheer luck. They had done a make or break attempt where they'd spent £20,000 to rent a spot in New York Sony Music Studios for a week. Ne-Yo was having a meeting where he needed a CD player and his didn't work. So he knocks on Stargate's room, asks if they can use his, and I think basically they were like, yeah, you can if you listen to some of our music afterwards. And the result was a US and UK number 1 so far and plenty more to come. Ne-Yo said in the book The Song Machine, I walk into the room and I see 2 tall, lanky Norwegian guys, and clearly I was a little sceptical. However, when he heard the beat for So Sick, he said he loved it so much that he cried. It has been claimed that Stargate first tried to offer the song to Jay Sean, but then Ne-Yo ends up releasing it, getting a number 1 on both sides of the Atlantic. The first of 10 US number 1s for Stargate, including tracks by Rihanna, Beyoncé, and indeed Ne-Yo, as well as producing Elvis's track What Does the Fox Say? The combination of So Sick going to number 1 in the US and this going to number 7 is enough for Ne-Yo's debut album to enter the charts at number 1 in America and mean that his career is assured for the next few years, even if he and Stargate would get a lot of criticism for essentially ripping themselves off in the future, such as when Stylus magazine said that their track Hate That I Love You for Rihanna was the sexy love drums, the irreplaceable strum, and a bit of the synth and chorus melody from So Sick is hardly the new twist all these old bits need to sound fresh. But who is Ne-Yo? Well, he is Schaefer Smith, who started going bald as a kid, hence his ever-widening array of hats. He had been in a R&B band called Envy, who never really added up too much, especially after they were booed off stage of the talent competition Showtime at the Apollo. But he started to develop his talents as a top-line lyricist. Stargate would write the underlying instrumental backing, and he would come in and do the lyrics and vocal melody. His early career saw him doing that for artists like Mary J. Blige, B2K, and Faith Evans. And in fact, he was doing so well as a songwriter that he nearly turned down the opportunity to join Def Jam Records, telling their head guy, L.A. Reid, I need you to understand that I want this, but I don't need this. I'm not about to let you change me into something that is the complete opposite of who the hell I am, leading L.A. Reid to respond, I like what you do already, why would I change you? The legend is that he auditioned straight for Jay-Z, but Ne-Yo says this wasn't the case. Instead, he was trying to offer them some songs he had written, which he then sang to someone at Def Jam, and they impressed it so much that they took him straight to see the head of the label. signing him on that day, kicking off a incredibly successful US and UK career, probably specifically because this is American R&B made by Europeans. It means it can cross both markets. That career, however, will not see him entering the UK Top 40 again until April 2007's Because of You. So taking a brief break from Ne-Yo, he's clearly going to take some travel sickness pills because he will no longer be so sick of love songs. In fact, they will be buying him houses and cars for most of the rest of the decade. But not right now, enough to get him in
The Top 20.
Songs coming up: All American Rejects, the Kooks, Muse, Pussycat Dolls, and the Zutons. First though, speaking of Rihanna, she is here at
20.
SOS actually going up one place, with these football songs creating a vacuum by going up the charts, which is pulling other songs up higher. This isn't helping Keen, however, who are dropping 5 places in their 5th week with their track Is It Any Wonder?
19.
However, their album Under the Iron Sea is spending a 2nd week at number 1 on the album charts, fending off a greatest hits collection from Fatboy Slim at 2 and the Automatics album Not Accepted Anywhere at number 3. I bought the latter album on deep discount about a year later, and I'm ashamed to say that somebody pirated the Fatboy Slim album for me. So Norman, not making any cash from me, I'm afraid. Hips Don't Lie, meanwhile, which we'll be talking about later on in this show as it challenges for the number 1 spot, is enough to bring Shakira's album back into the top 40 for the first time since it dropped out after only 1 week on the charts back in March. Also, while we're in the album chart, shout out to number 18, the first Madonna live album, I'm Going to Tell You a Secret, which I definitely bought and listened to all the time, even the very dodgy bagpipe version of Into the Groove and her dire cover of John Lennon's Imagine.
18.
If we're talking pop punk, which is one of my least favourite genres, this is probably the high point of a bad genre. It's the scum that has risen to the top. It's All American Rejects with Dirty Little Secret.
I'll keep you my dirty little secret.
So far, All American Rejects' peak remains Swing Swing, a number 13 hit back in 2003. They're an emo band from Oklahoma, initially a duo of Tyson Ritter and Nick Wheeler. Their first 2 demos largely made as a duo, which was enough to give them money for a debut album released on an indie label. This caught the attention of DreamWorks Records, who re-released it, by which point they had been joined by guitarist Mike Kennedy and the unfortunately named drummer Chris Gaylor. That first album they made on no money and no budget, sleeping on the producer's floor. They said they lost 20 pounds during the recording process because they were eating mostly granola and yogurt every day. That first album went platinum and made it to number 25 on the Billboard 200. It is this album in which they will ride the wave of emo success, touring with Fall Out Boy until this single goes into the US top 10 and the album goes multi-platinum. This, the first single in the UK from their follow-on album, Move Along. They had initially submitted it to Interscope Records, who were not big fans of every track, and so told them to go back and write some more songs, at which point the band remembered a little country acoustic song that they had been working on called Dirty Little Secret, which was added to the album, giving them their first ever US top 10. It was first released in the UK in September 2005 when it only made it to number 96. However, the head of Interscope Records just basically kept pushing it to radio stations until it became a hit. He sort of knew the way the wind was blowing with these emo bands, and eventually it worked out and the album sold 3 million copies. This song, Dirty Little Secret, obviously about sort of having a secret relationship, but sadly there is no juicy behind-the-scenes drama. Both Nick Wheeler and Tyson Ritter were in long-term relationships with their girlfriends at the time. They said, "We came from a small town. Until now, we've both had steady relationships. So sometimes there's not enough drama or turmoil to write about, so we simply write stories," and that's where these lyrics come from. Music OMH, however, not a fan, among others. If Simple Plan are a poor man's Green Day, the All American Rejects are a poor man's Simple Plan. It's fluffy punk pop for middle-class American teenage girls who don't want to listen to Sierra and 50 Cent and would rather get sweaty with boys in eyeliner than shake their booty to the latest Missy Elliott remix. I have to say, getting sweaty with boys in eyeliner doesn't sound like a bad evening to me, personally. And speaking of, apparently the band is constantly approached by gay men saying that this became the song to their first closeted relationships in high school. They, meanwhile, have called it the moment they crossed over from alternative rock into pop, which is why they were initially hesitant to record it for the album. but as they're soon to find out, that is where the money is. The video is also very much a product of the mid-2000s. It features postcards sent to the website Post Secret, where people could mail in postcards containing a secret. The band made a donation to charity in exchange for use of some of those postcards. And nowadays, people just put their bloody secrets up on Facebook for everyone to see, don't they? In these bloody 2020s, don't they? You've seen them, those Facebookers with their secrets. That's a new character we're introducing to the show. It's basically me if I was Northern. I say there's no juicy secrets behind this song, but it is that rare song that was actually involved in a murder trial. In 2010, a Baptist minister in Waco, Texas, called Matt Baker, not to be mistaken for the former Blue Peter and One Show presenter, was convicted of murdering his wife in 2006, and at the trial, a series of emails to his mistress were revealed, one of which featured him quoting from the lyrics of this song at another part of the email. And you can't say that about Keane, can you? They've never been, to my knowledge, involved in any murder trials, except presumably murders of people who were forced to listen to too much Keane. So All American Rejects there at number 18. Despite their American chart success, they will have less in the UK. This album only goes to number 45, and they will not appear on the UK charts again until their 2009 hit, Gives You Hell. It was their first ever number one on any Billboard chart when it topped the pop airplay charts. We'll see whether it can match that in 3 years' time. How's that for a bit of suspense for you? But there's no suspense about what's at number 17, another football song taking a tumble, a 9-place drop to be exact, for Embrace, reaching a month on the chart with World at Your Feet.
17.
They're more at the foot of the world.
16.
For the third week in a row, this song's sticking at number 16. This just happens. As downloads enter the chart, you can just sell a consistent amount for a long time and stay in the mid-teens. It's very like it is in the 2020s. That's the feeling with Fill My Little World. 6 weeks they've been on the chart now.
You ain't so tough.
Free Lions by Baddiel and Skinner also dropping 6 places. Not the least susceptible to the football curse, but still dropping a few places.
15.
And at
14.
we have the second appearance on this chart by the Kooks, not yet able to match their peak of number 5, which is where their track Naive went in April, but this song is entering the top 20 on downloads alone, always a good sign. A song will be challenging for the top 5 next week. This was certainly, at the time, this would have been my should have been a number 1, but I have aged and matured. Here we have the 39th biggest selling song of the year, between Promiscuous by Nelly Furtado and It's Chico Time by Chico, will sell 141,000 copies. It's the Kooks with She Moves in Her Own Way. The website The Skinny giving it 2 stars, saying, thanks to the Radio 1 seal of approval, the Kooks have gone from unknown tussle-haired Brighton kids to hype to the rafters tussle-haired Brighton kids in the space of months. Although they claim to be forging their own path in guitar-based pop music, new single She Moves in Her Own Way is a veritable Frankenstein's monster stitch-up of everyone from the Zutons to Razorlight to the Kinks. Not such a bad pillaging then, but the new song lacks the hooks of Naive or the drive of You Don't Love Me, and is a clear foot off the accelerator moment during the Kooks' stellar ascent. And it has been a stellar ascent. They are that very rare band. This song aside, their chart placements have gone up with every single release they've put out. They went from Eddie's Garner 35, Sofa Song 28, You Don't Love Me 12, and then Naive went to number 5. We'll see whether this song can match it when the physical sales kick in next week. Naive still selling, of course, though it moved 6 places up the chart this week as people decided to get a double dose of the Kooks for themselves. I really loved this song at the time. I think this was the song that convinced me to buy this album, which I'm sorry to say I liked at the time. Deal with it. A lot of the reviews I read of this are like, you know, they'll be like, oh, of course it's just a rip-off of the Kinks. I'm like, I hadn't heard the fucking Kinks. I didn't know what that was. So this sounded great to me. You know, do I listen to the Kooks often now? Well, yes, because I do this show all the bloody time, and Naive refuses to leave the chart. But apart from that, maybe not so much. My biggest memory of this song is when we talked about Naive, we talked about how everybody misheard the lyric. I know she knows that I'm not fond of asking. It was this song for me that had the misheard lyrics in it. The real lyric is, uh-oh, I love her because she moves in her own way. And for some reason, I thought the lyric was, uh-oh, verbicus, she moves in her own way. And now you're thinking to yourself, verbicus, that's not a word, Sam. Why did you think it was that? And the answer is, I don't know. To be fair, if there was a woman named Verbica, she would certainly be moving in her own way. It's not my fault they can't enunciate, and I was a stupid 13-year-old, is it now? So the Kooks mocked a lot, but they did ultimately, I think, make some right decisions that much more respected indie bands did not. And that is why they're beating many of their competitors. This is from an interview with Repeat Fanzine. To be honest, we were way too young to sign a record deal. We'd been together like 2 or 3 months, so we really didn't want to sign. Then when they did sign, they decided they weren't going to record the album straight away, and they were going to focus more on live performance and songwriting. And so they did a tour first before recording their album, which allowed them to hone their songs. And we've had so many artists on this chart who didn't do that. They're forced by their record labels into releasing an album, often like after doing about 3 gigs. The songs aren't ready, their live chops aren't ready, and then it's no surprise when they fail. And you can see why a lot of these bands would be quite sniffy about the Kooks, who actually made wise business decisions. Even though there was an unwise decision from their record company, they released the Kooks album the same day as the debut Arctic Monkeys album. Maybe the idea was that they knew that all of these indie people were going to be going to the record stores anyway to buy the Arctic Monkeys album. They'd already had 2 #1 hits on the singles chart, and so they thought, maybe they'll, buy them both at the same time. And although it meant that the album only went in at number 9 that week compared to Arctic's going in at 1, it did not stop the album having great longevity. It would eventually peak at number 2 on the album chart and sell over 1.5 million copies. And Luke Pritchard in recent years has been fairly thankful to the Arctic Monkeys for their role in their careers, telling NME, God bless the Arctic Monkeys, because if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have been so shielded. We were so overshadowed by the success of their album because it was so monster and we crept in behind everyone's back. Although there is a story that I read the other day, which we're going to be getting in more next week when we talk about Razorlight and their various fights with artists. But there was a situation in which they were at a gig together and Alex Turner tried to mess with their kit, leading to Luke from the Kooks kicking him in the face. This all coming just months after they were a bunch of Brighton students who were spotted by label scouts and signed to Virgin Records in 2005. Now, I feel that they were probably spotted at a showcase put on by the very stage school that they're so chippy about in interviews, but we can't get into Kooks' stage school roots again. Listen back to our episode. I think that's the one about You Don't Love Me back in January 2006. In fact, Luke from the Kooks has become a genuinely interesting interviewee in recent years because he's very honest and sort of reflective about this time, such as when he said, in some ways there was a maturity to our music that was way above that of teenagers, but in a lot of ways it's also incredibly juvenile, especially some of the lyrics. And I think She Moves in Her Own Way may be the biggest victim of that. So at my show on Monday, I was hoping someday you'd be on your way to better things. It's not about your makeup or how you try to shape up to these tiresome paper dreams. Some pretty basic rhyming there. Didn't stop them becoming one of the most talked about bands of the year, working their absolute arses off. There was a feature with the Kooks on Clash Music in 2006, which is sort of a year with the Kooks, and it shows you how much work they were doing because it starts every month with like a list of all the performances that they did. So in June alone, they did 5 TV appearances, the Isle of Wight Festival, an AOL session, a Barcelona festival, a radio session, multiple German festivals, and a Belgian festival. Them absolutely working themselves to the bone as festival season kicked off in the summer of 2006. They said at the time, I tell you what, recently it's got a lot harder. I got really ill 2 weeks ago. I went to Los Angeles to interview Debbie Harry. I'd been in New York for a few days and got so mashed. Then I went from New York to LA, but it was horrific. My plane got cancelled. All this shit happened. I got there and got fucking ill. I had a fever and tonsillitis. I had to do this Debbie Harry thing, then I had to fly back. I did like 6 flights in 7 days. All this bollocks happened and I got back and I'd never been so ill in my life. I came back on tour for 2 days and then the 3rd day I had to cancel the show. I didn't get into a band to have responsibilities ever. I want to be free. I think we're all adjusting to changing so that we do what we want, but we also don't fuck up the way things are. Though, of course, they later add, what we do is pretty exhausting, but we could be doing manual labour. It's pretty simple, pretty easy, it's just fun. And the momentum will continue. They'll have another single in October, Ooh La, probably my favourite track on the whole album, which I owned and sadly played to death. Also, it's the song most obviously about Katie Melua, what with Ooh La sounding so similar to Melua.
13.
Faster Kill, Pussycat Oakenfold and Brittany Murphy now been on the chart for 5 weeks. That poor Pussycat being endlessly murdered hasn't quite made its way through its 9 lives, I guess, yet.
12, 12, 12.
Is MyMyMy by Armand van Helden. Staying firm at number 12 in its third week on the chart, followed by
11.
The first single from this band to enter the chart outside of the top 10, although they won't be too worried as this is coming in just on downloads alone. Say hello to the Pussycat Dolls and Snoop Dogg, and why don't you relax and loosen up your buttons, babe? The fourth single from the Pussycat Dolls following the two number ones, Don't Ya and Stick With You, and their number 3 hit Beep. Also their third rapper collaboration after Busta Rhymes on Don't Ya and will.i.am on Beep. Some big name talent behind this song, partly written by Sean Garrett, the man behind Usher's US and UK number 1 hit Yeah, as well as the UK number 1 Goodies for Sierra and the US number 1 Grills for Nelly. Also will write the immortal London Bridge for Fergie, so maybe it's him we have to blame for the fact that Fergie clearly doesn't know the difference between London Bridge and Tower Bridge. Co-wrote with Jamal Jones, formerly in a southern hip-hop group with fairly forgotten white rapper trying to come for Eminem spot Bubba Sparks and Timbaland. When this didn't work out, he ended up producing instrumentals. His tape of these made their way to the Interscope Records founder Jimmy Iovine, one of which ended up as the bassist for the track Buttons. He also will work on London Bridge, as well as the Nicki Minaj song Anaconda and the Usher song Love in This Club. Also, weirdly, this song features work from Jason Perry, the English songwriter who was lead vocalist of the alternative rock band A. Not quite sure what he's offering to this melting pot of songwriters, but he's on there. To put it into perspective, the other two are working on like Sierra and Usher, and you're like, yeah, okay, I see how that suits with the Pussycat Dolls. The last thing that Jason Perry worked on was the Matt Willis album. But we have to talk about the most important thing related to the song Buttons, which is the amazing performance at the 2006 American Music Awards, where Melody Thornton, clearly pissed off that Nicole Scherzinger takes all the credit, comes in at the end of the song and tries to knock her off the stage with some of the loudest backing vocals you have ever heard. Led to being described by one writer as being like Christina Aguilera stuck in a wind tunnel. Melody Thornton's subsequent explanation for this to Entertainment Tonight was that she had been very ill while the band were performing overseas. It led to her taking some medication and going to bed after putting her passport under her pillow. She says that she woke up and left her passport on the bus, and in the sort of clamour to look for it, she missed the rehearsals for the AMA's music performance and so could only come on the air at the end totally unprepared. It seems that Melody Thornton did not have a great time in the band. After all, she was actually a singer and felt that she didn't get any opportunities because Nicole Scherzinger took them all. She told the Mirror, "I lost so much confidence and felt really worthless. It was pointed out over and over again that I was the weakest link in the group. And when you're told over and over again you're worthless in this group, it's amazing how it affects you mentally. I had never felt insecure until I joined the Pussycat Dolls." She has since not decided to join the band on their 2 reunions. I definitely talked about it. We kicked around the idea. I had people on my team saying, "Oh, I'd hate for you to miss out on a cash grab, but I don't want to live my life on a cash grab. And if it makes me stupid to some people, it makes me stupid." I mean, it seems that the Pussycat Dolls aren't going to be grabbing as much cash as they thought they were, what with all their American tour dates being cancelled. Although I will actually go to bat and say their track Club Song, their 2026 reunion single, is actually pretty good. She says, though, she does not blame Nicole Scherzinger for everything that was wrong with the band. People would assume that I was so mad at Nicole because she sang and I didn't. Well, no, that was her dream and it was coming true for her. I just wanted it for myself too. I'm a phenomenal vocalist, you just never heard it, but it wasn't Nicole's fault. There was an opportunity there for her. She needed to capitalise on it. She had been in groups prior to Pussycat Dolls, so the label wanted her to sing leads. Every time I'd say, if I could sing more, then I wouldn't be the weakest link, but that didn't fit their agenda. And in fact, as I learnt this week, Nicole Scherzinger, of course, was in other bands. In fact, she was originally meant to be in the Black Eyed Peas. This was after she was on the American version of Pop Stars, I guess making her the Mylene Class of America. She ended up in the final 5 of that TV series, ended up in the girl band Eden's Crush, who managed 1 top 10 single with their track Get Over Yourself and a number 6 album, but nowhere near matching the success of pretty much every other Pop Stars backed band across the world, from Bardo in Australia to Hearsay in the UK. They did support NSYNC and Jessica Simpson, but by 2002 they had disbanded. And of course you will have much more success here with the Pussycat Dolls. So much so that they're going to go for a 5th single from this album later in the year with I Don't Need a Man, which is a little silly, a title for the Pussycat Dolls when all of their other songs had really been about exactly how much they needed a man. But we can talk about that at the time. We have to head into the top 10.
The top 10.
So still to come, we have 2 new entries in the top 10, courtesy of Valerie by the Zutons and Supermassive Black Hole by Muse.
10.
Who Knew by Pink. I Know, that was at number 7 last week.
'Cause you said forever.
9.
A new entry got into the charts at 41 on downloads alone last week. It will be another artist who gets the real success from this track in a year's time, but the Zutons for now have got Valerie to number 9.
Why don't you come on over, Valerie?
I could tell you I was inspired by gazing out across the Mersey or walking past Paul McCartney's old house, but the truth is I got the idea in a cab on the way to my mum's. The whole song was written before I got there, so 20 minutes maximum, said Dave McCabe to The Scotsman about writing Valerie. And this is because the song required literally no imagination from him. It's just a recounting of what was happening to him at the time. They didn't even change the name. It is literally written about a woman called Valerie Starr, who was dating Dave McCabe, the frontman of the Zutons at the time, but lived in Florida and was having trouble with the law, which prevented her coming to Liverpool. She told Vice, I got arrested the week before I was going to go to Liverpool to be with him. It was my, I want to say, 7th felony driving on a suspended licence. I got a speeding ticket and I thought the policemen were dumb. So I thought, well, by me not paying the ticket, that's me sticking it to the man. Clearly not, because then they put a warrant out for your arrest. It becomes a whole ideal. And also, I might not have stopped immediately, which apparently is evading the police. And I might have spat on the officer because he was very rude, and that's assault. I spent every penny I had, which was like 30 grand, to not go to prison. I did get my license taken away for like 15 years, but that was much better than jail. Since I was stuck in Florida and dealing with the courts and lawyers, that's when Dave wrote the song. And as the lyrics suggest, I can confirm that she has ginger hair and an interesting way of dressing. Apparently, the record label wanted them to change the line about ginger hair, but the band insisted because they wanted a positive depiction of ginger hair. He had met Valerie when she was meant to see a band that the Zutons were supporting in Florida, but then they pulled out. She nearly decided not to go, but thought what they paid for the ticket, so may as well see the support act. And she loved it so much that she grabbed him as soon as he left the stage and bought him a drink. Ended up as an all-night party and a relationship. It's so funny how there's like no poetic license in this song at all. It's just literally things that happened to Valerie, like, did you have to go to jail, put your house all up for sale? Did you get a good lawyer? Did you have to pay the fine? Which makes it perhaps all the weirder when somebody who wasn't involved sang it, as Amy Winehouse did, to great acclaim. First performed by her on the Live Lounge on BBC Radio 1. Then Amy Winehouse at the time was working on her Back to Black album with Mark Ronson, and he asked if she could also appear on his solo album that he was making, in which he got various singers to do cover versions of some of their favourite songs. They eventually settled on Valerie, and the band gave them permission, but warned them, I don't think it's going to do very well because we had just had a massive hit and lightning doesn't strike twice. They would get it all the way to number 2, with only the Sugar Babes' About You Now stopping it from hitting the top spot. The Zutons and Amy Winehouse had actually met previously, this is from The Independent. At a drunken house party in Camden, the singer and songwriter of the Liverpool indie outfit was being bothered by a hanger-on. When the Scouser told him to hop it, another Suzzle guest, a local, jumped in to defend the hanger-on. No, you fuck off, shouted Amy Winehouse. And I went, no, you fuck off. He storms out the party, and then Amy comes running out, saying, come back, I love that song, Valerie. I didn't realise it was you that wrote that. And it would result in her biggest success on the UK charts. Was initially going to be done as a slower version, as the Zutons version is, but at the end of the recording session, Mark Ronson said, oh, just for fun, let's just do like a sped up one. And that ends up as the version that you can hear at karaoke bars across the world. And Amy Winehouse doesn't feature in the video because by this point she was already back into her dabbling with heroin, which of course would claim her life tragically young. Mark Ronson said of this time to The Guardian, I haven't seen the biopic, but I don't need a movie to trigger my memories. The day we cut Valerie, Amy was in her ballet shoes, and I remember her walking down the middle of Flatbush Avenue in Brooklyn, looking so carefree and peaceful. It was just before Back to Black came out and her life got crazy. Valerie is the one song Amy sings that's devoid of the pain and torment in her own music, which is why it's such a beloved piece of her. You can forget the sadness and tragedy and just celebrate her voice. And celebrate her voice, indeed, we will be doing later. Rehab will come out in October 2006, while Valerie comes out in September 2007. And Dave McKay from the Zutons will make so much from it that he'll be able to buy himself a house. Almost certainly makes more money from that than any of his own songs, because this will be their last UK top 10 hit. Although they will have another single out in September of this year, Oh Stacey, Look What You've Done. And look what you've done, British record buying public. You have let The Lost Prophets take a 31 place leap up this chart to
8.
Ahead of them from Infernals from Paris to Berlin at
7.
Know what that might be.
That's now been in the top 10 for 11 weeks. Mash Canada by Sergio Mendes and the Black Eyed Peas taking a 23 place leap up this chart.
6.
Till we get your say.
Monster is the Automatic, down 1 place after a month in the chart.
5.
No excuse. No excuse.
And our highest new entry this week comes in at number
4.
The chart peak for the band that we know on this show as the Early Learning Centre Radiohead. It's Muse, it's Supermassive Black Hole, and it pains me to say this, but this is my should have been a number 1 of the week.
Song that should have been this week.
They ate with this. I'm such a slut for whispery bits in songs. Muse, Matt Bellamy, Chris Wolstenholme and Dominic Howard, a trio of friends from Teignmouth in Devon, started a band at the age of 13. This, their 4th album, the follow-up to Absolution, which gave them their first UK number 1 album. Their follow-up Black Holes and Revelations will be their second UK number 1 later in the year, beating by 4 places their previous peak on this chart, which was when Time Is Running Out got to number 8 in 2003, their only top 10 hit to this point. This song taking its name from supermassive black holes, the largest type of black hole containing masses ranging from hundreds of thousands to billions of times larger than our sun. They apparently sit at the centre of almost all large galaxies, including our own Milky Way. They are, however, using it as a metaphor. Confusingly, Matt Bellamy himself described it to Hot Press as being about a sinister presence at the centre of a galaxy alerting us to a menage a trois involving R2-D2 and the Queen when she was hot. So I hope that's clear, and if it's not, he clarified it's kind of comparing a woman to the centre of the galaxy as this gigantic black hole that you powerlessly get sucked into. What I'm trying to say in a roundabout way is that's what women are like. Charming. I would say the real woman who is sucking this song into her orbit is Britney Spears. Multiple people have noticed that it has some similarity to her track Do Something, which Matt Bellamy may have heard while DJing in New York, which he did in the lead up to this album, which is what gives this song its dancier feel than their previous work. So they started recording of this working in Studio Miraval in southern France, the studio most famous for what Pink Floyd put together their album The Wall, gave them a number 1 single with Another Brick in the Wall. These sessions came to nothing, however, so Bellamy went to New York, got into dance music, and this is the result. This song also hit in the US, where it finds fame after appearing in the baseball scene in the first Twilight film. And I realised that Twilight hate is so done, and that first film is not terrible, but the baseball scene really is stupid and goes on for so long. I wouldn't want my music to be part of it, but it paid off. It's a bit of a mixed opinion about the movie within Muse. Matt Bellamy said it's great to be involved and it's so much fun. I like the movies a lot. They're really good and we hope to continue with this and do another song. Whereas their bassist Chris Wolstenholme told the BBC, I'm not sure how cool it is to be on these kind of things, but sometimes you've just got to get your music out there in different ways. It's very difficult in America because you don't have anything like Radio 1. Nothing is national. You have to take every opportunity you get over there, and sometimes you have to sell your soul. He described the films as not his cup of tea. But vampiric baseball players will pay off for them, and they will release 2 more singles from this album in the UK, Starlight in September, and then my favourite Muse track by far, Knights of Sidonia, in December 2006. But we now must get sucked into the supermassive black hole that is this week's number 1, so let's find out what it is. I wish it was a punk rocker dropping 1 place in its 9th week, that a former number 1.
3.
77 and 69.
Meaning it's a battle for number 1 between 2 solo women, which is an unusual and great state of affairs to be in. It's Shakira versus Maneater. For now,
2.
It's Shakira and Wyclef Jean going up 1 place in their 3rd week on the chart.
Starting to feel
it's right.
and giving Nelly Furtado her month on the chart and her third week in a row at number 1, selling 34,537 copies, also giving her a number 1 on downloads for the third week in a row. But as on the main chart, Shakira is gaining on her, and another female artist is also moving into the top 5 of that download chart, Rihanna, with Unfaithful, sure to be a big hit in a few weeks' time. Also on that download chart, we have a big future hit alert, new at 14, Christina Aguilera's Ain't No Other Man, her first single since Car Wash. What was that, 2 years ago? So what a great year 2006 is turning out to be. When pop girlies are doing well, I'm happy, even if it does feel a little bare of British pop. For now, let's see if that will change next week. I think it will, seeing as next week will be the chart debut of a certain Miss Lily Allen. Her track Smile taking on one of the biggest indie bands in Britain, their first single from their second album, seen as a landmark for many in Landfill Indie, Razorlight. We'll be back with In the Morning, alongside new singles from Kelly Clarkson, Fatboy Slim, and one of my favourite bands of the entire 2000s. So listen next week for that. For now, thank you very much for listening. You can go to our website, the2000schartshow.wordpress.com, to find all of our various activities, Patreon, Substack, social media, YouTube, etc. Hopefully, the day after this is being released, YouTube subscribers will get our video talking about Madonna's Hung Up that Patreon subscribers have had for the last week, and also the bonus video on Madonna's follow-up to that, Sorry. It's also, hopefully, finally for Patreon listeners, going to be the day when my ranking of the every number 1 from the year 2000 comes out. So plenty to enjoy this week, and I'm going to enjoy this week's number 1 from 20 years ago, Man Eater by Nelly Furtado. See you next time.
Come on now.